Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Beef Up Front podcast. I am your host, Ryan Coyle, joined again by Kevin Walder as we continue our series looking ahead to the NFL season. Been breaking down every division. You can listen to our first two podcasts. We did the NFC East and the NFC North. Today, we're going to be attacking the South. Kevin, how are we doing today?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Hanging in there.
Yeah.
Stuff starting to get back to normal, kind of. Hopefully, baseball maybe might be coming back now. It's saying I'm starting to get worried that the NBA might not happen, just because it's looking like stuff's getting bad down in Florida again.
Yeah.
But
that and the NHL, they're both supposed to, or the NHL is not supposed to be there, but the MLS is supposed to be there too.
Okay. So. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. Hopefully we're not doing these NFL previews for nothing, and we have football come the fall. But we'll start. You can start it off today, Kevin. Like I said, we're attacking the NFC South today for our preview. So, who do you have finishing at the top of the NFC South?
Yeah, no surprise for who I have finishing first. It's New Orleans Saints. They've been one of the elite teams in the NFL for what it seems like years now. I have them going 12-4. 4-2 in the division. That's good enough to get the 1 seed. I have them and Dallas both finishing with 12-4 records, but the Saints had the tie break. And for their offensive grade, I gave them an A+. I don't think it gets much better than the Saints offensive group there. It just seems like the Saints have been elite offensively for ever since I could remember, ever since Drew Brees got there, really. They always seem to put up big numbers. Everyone knows the big names in the offense with Michael Thomas, Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, Taysom Hill. But they added Emmanuel Sanders in this offseason, who I think it's a really good fit there because they haven't really had that number 2 receiver behind Thomas in past years. And Sanders is a nice kind of complement to him where he's more of a speed guy, where Thomas is kind of just like a intermediate route guy, slant guy. So I think that Emmanuel Sanders is gonna be a guy that's gonna have a really good year there. They also took Cesar Ruiz out of Michigan. I think he was drafted as a center, but I think they might play him as a guard. I think he was probably the best center in the draft. And that's a good thing to shore up their offensive line up the middle with Drew Brees getting up there in age. And they have Latavius Murray, who I think is one of the best backup running backs in the NFL. He's a great change of pace guy for them. So even if Kamara goes down, I'm not saying like the sky is falling for the Saints offense because they got Murray there. And yeah, like I said, there hasn't been a season where I don't remember them being good, and I don't think that's going to change right now. I think they're poised for another year or two of being at the top of this division. And their defense is kind of sneaky good. I give them an A- actually for their defense because it gets overshadowed because of when you hear Saints, you just think their offense and Drew Brees and playing in that dome. But really, their defense has been one of the better defenses in the NFL over the past few years. They have really good defensive end play with Cameron Jordan and Davenport there, Marcus Davenport. But even their secondary, they have some good names there, like Lattimore. You forget Janoris Jenkins is there, but he's a proven NFL guy in the secondary. And they also brought in Malcolm Jenkins in the offseason, which I think you've seen what he's done for the Eagles over the past few years. He's just a proven leader. And the thing about this Saints team is they have so many veterans that I know Sean Payton said like they're not doing any OTA stuff because they don't need it. And I think that's what's going to benefit them as opposed to a younger team or a team that has a lot of new moving parts. I think the Saints with this whole like coronavirus offseason, I don't think they're going to be really bothered by it at all. So I think they'll come into the season a lot better prepared than other teams. And for their coaching grade, I gave them an A-. Sean Payton, I mean, he's kind of been there, done that, proven guy. I think if I was ranking, because when I grade the coaches, I think about what I would rank them if I was ranking all the NFL head coaches. I think Sean Payton is a top 5, maybe even top 3 coach in the NFL, just because he's built that program. I mean, like I don't really like the Saints. I don't really like Sean Payton, but you have to respect what he's built there. Even like from his first season, he took over a 3-13 team back in 2006, and he took them to the NFC Championship in his first year. I don't think a lot of people remember that. But yeah, Sean Payton, like, you can't argue against him at this point. It's just a matter of can he get back and win another Super Bowl. And my breakout player, I have Marcus Davenport, a guy who I mentioned earlier. He's not really talked about a lot because they have guys with big names there like Cam Jordan and Marcus Lattimore. But Davenport isn't a guy who's necessarily put up big numbers. He's drafted about two years ago, I think. And I think he's 10 and a half sacks total in his career. But when you look at all the Pro Football Focus numbers and like the sort of next gen stats, he's one of the better rushers in the league. Sort of like a Brandon Graham type in Philadelphia, where he just sort of gets after the quarterback all the time. And I think that this year could be the year that you start to see him put up those bigger sack numbers, just because it's a matter of time. He's pretty due. And our two big games for the Saints, for the Bucks. No, for the Saints. I have Week 1 versus the Bucks, just because all the offseason talk you've heard about this year was about the Bucks. I think that's a good opportunity for them to come out Week 1 and sort of just like remind the Bucks, like, oh, we're still here and we're still the team that we're still the best team in this division. And then I have Week 16 hosting the Vikings as my other big game because, from our last podcast, I had the Vikings going 11-5, and so I have these two teams tied in the standings going into this game. So it would potentially decide the number 1 or number 2 seed here. So that's why I have that as a big game.
All right, sounds good. You said pretty much most of the stuff I was gonna say. I also have the Saints at 12-4, 4-2 in the division, and finishing as the 1 seed as well. Offense, I gave them an A. We know they have Drew Brees back again, who's top 5 quarterback all time. Got a top 3 receiver in the league, and Michael Thomas. Alvin Kamara is a top 10 back, versatile guy who's gonna catch at least 50 balls a season. He's gonna probably rush for about 1,000 yards as well. So he's a guy who, when we're talking all-purpose yards and versatile players, him and Christian McCaffrey are probably the 2 most versatile running back / offensive weapons in the whole league. A very good offensive line, and like you were saying, they got better through the draft with drafting Cesar Ruiz from Michigan, who is viewed as the best interior lineman in the draft. And tight end is a very solid position for them too. People forget, like, Jared Cook is there. He had a very good season last year where he had 9 touchdowns, 705 yards. So 9 touchdowns for a guy who's 33 years old now. That's a pretty good season. He's a big-time red zone weapon. Josh Hill's always a productive player when his number gets called. And I really like the upside of the rookie tight end, Adam Troutman from Dayton. He was a guy who could have gone higher in the draft if he was at like a bigger name school. He was like drawing comparisons to Dallas Goedert, who went to South Dakota State before coming to the Eagles, kind of a small school guy who flew under the radar, and he could get a lot of production there with the Saints if he's thrust into a big role at the beginning of his career. I like the Sanders pickup as well, but at the end of the day, he is 32 years old, so how much can you really depend on him? Especially he's coming off a torn Achilles from a few years ago, so his deep speed hasn't been there like it used to. So the only thing that I have holding them back from an A+ grade is the fact that can they find a consistent wide receiver 2 behind Thomas? And when I say that, I mean they need a guy who's going to get in between 50 and 65 catches and help draw the attention away from Thomas, because I think he had 139 catches last year, and I just don't think those numbers are repeatable. I mean, defenses are just going to scheme to shut him down. So for the defense grade, I give him a B+. I think Cameron Jordan's an elite player on defense, and he doesn't really get enough credit through NFL circles. He kind of reminds me of a guy you were talking about last week, and Danielle Hunter, where if he was on like a bigger market team, I think he would, like Dallas or New York, or even if he was playing up for the Patriots or something, he would be getting a lot more credit throughout the league. And I think they have a very strong secondary led by Marcus Lattimore, the big all-season pickup of Malcolm Jenkins, who can do it all. But can the pass rush be consistent enough behind Cameron Jordan is what will make or break the defense, I think. I mean, we see in the NFL, you need to have 2 or 3 good pass rushers to really cause them havoc. I mean, that's why we saw the 49ers have so much success last year, the Eagles a few years ago. It's all about depth up front and being able to rotate in guys, especially when you get towards the end of the season and the playoffs. Coaching grade, I gave him A-. Sean Payton, like you were saying, I'd probably put him in the top 5, top 3 maybe of coaches in the NFL. Just he's a big-time offensive coach, but the thing I have holding him back from an A or an A+ potentially is he hasn't had too much success in the playoffs in recent years. I mean, the NFC title game loss to the Rams, I mean, that was arguable because of the pass interference, but still didn't get the job done there. Lost the home game last year to the Vikings when I think they were like a touchdown favorite. I think he puts Taysom Hill in the game too much. I mean, I'm a firm believer, and Drew Brees gets in a rhythm and stuff, and it feels like he throws in Taysom Hill like kind of a waste to pick up 2 yards and kind of see the offense stall out from time to time. So I think he can get like too cute and finesse too much instead of just rolling with what works. So I think that's what I think holds him back. The real question with him is, can he get the Saints over the top this year? I mean, I think most people are looking at them as the NFC favorite. Can he get them to another Super Bowl? And before the window with Drew Brees closes, you don't really have an answer right now at quarterback behind him. Breakout player, I talked about him a little bit earlier. I think Adam Troutman, the rookie tight end from Dayton. When I say breakout for him, I don't really know how great he'll do. I mean, looking at the Saints roster, most people are proven on that team, but I think he's a guy who could surprise. Maybe he could get 25 to 30 catches, but a few of those are going to be long balls up the seam, and he's going to make some plays out of that. So I think he could also be a 5 to 6 touchdown guy as we see Josh Hill and Jared Cook's role kind of regress, and they throw Troutman in the game more. And my 2 big games, I have Week 1 versus the Bucs. Like you were saying, that's kind of the big, going to be the big rivalry in that division this year. Breeze and Brady, Week 1, it's the 4:25 game. I'm pretty sure it's going to be on Fox, so it'll be the Buck-Aikman game, probably the game of the week in the NFL. All eyes will be on the TV for that one. And then Week 15 versus the Chiefs, that could be a potential Super Bowl preview. We're getting towards the end of the season there, so it's looking like we'll know a lot about those 2 teams then and see who's kind of got the upper edge heading to the playoffs and potentially the Super Bowl matchup. So that's what I got for the Saints.
One thing that I think is important for the Saints this year, and I know we say it a lot like as a joke, but I think the 1 seed or home field in the playoffs is very important to the Saints this year, just because I don't know if you can count on Drew Brees and the Saints team sort of going into like an outdoor place in the cold. I know we say it as a joke, but like think about him having to travel to like Seattle or like a Green Bay or even like a Philadelphia. I just don't know if like the arm strength is still there or anything like that. So I think it's very important for them that they get an inside playoff game.
But we say that, but then at the same time, they've lost the last 2 home playoff games in the Superdome.
Good point.
And he went to, I mean, well, it's probably like 4 or 5 years ago now, though. But they did go to Philadelphia and beat them in the playoffs. So
that was a while ago, though.
Yeah. But I mean, if we're looking at the top, the kind of the top ranked teams that we have, like the Cowboys, that would be an indoor game.
Yeah.
The Vikings, that could be an indoor game. He's just kind of got to try to avoid the Packers, the Eagles. I mean, we haven't touched on the West yet, but I have the Cardinals up there, that's an indoor stadium as well. So it's pretty much a hit or miss, half and half on the teams that they could play would be either in the dome or outside. But yeah, I agree with you. They got to hopefully get into Superdome for the Saints fans again.
Yeah, so I'll move on to my second place team now. I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in second place. I have them going 10-6 with a 5-1 record, and that's good enough for the 6th seed and to get in the playoffs. I do have them going 10-6, but I feel like I'm not as high on this Bucs team as most people. For my offense grade, I gave them an A- just because, I mean, look, they have probably the best 1-2 punch group of wide receivers in the NFL in Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. But other than that, I mean, I'm just not as sold on this offense as everyone else is. Like, their offensive line isn't that great. I don't know how much you can count on Tristan Wirfs to come in there as a rookie and like completely shore that up, because Jameis Winston got sacked 47 times last year, and like if you want this to be an elite unit, you can't have Tom Brady getting hit that much, because I mean I don't think he'll hold up if he has to get sacked 47 times. And a lot of people are really high on the tight end group. I'm not. I'm really not high on the tight end group at all. I mean,
Wow.
Gronkowski is like, how old is he now? He took a
Like
beating throughout his career.
31, 32.
If you expect Gronkowski to come back and be any sort of form as to what he was, he's going to be like a red zone guy, and that's
He's
like
30.
pretty much
He's
it.
31 years old.
Yeah,
Just
but
turned 31.
look at the beatings that he's taken in his NFL career.
I know, but
Like,
at the same time, that was one of the best tight end duos last year with Brait and Howard. And
was
you're
it
adding
though?
a guy like, yeah.
Howard had a lot of hype in the offseason. I'm not sure he lived up to it as much
All right,
as
but
the.
if you really think about it though, how many teams have like two good tight ends that like you can probably count that on one hand.
Yeah, but a lot of people are saying they're the best tight end. I know you say they're the best tight end group in the NFL. I know I would take the Ravens over them. I would take the Eagles over them. Like, I don't know. That's just two names off the top of my head that I have as better tight ends as the Bucs. And I haven't really dug into it all that much. I'm sure there are other teams as well that could rival that. Cameron Brate, I mean, come on. He's been there forever, and his name was never even mentioned before Tom Brady got there. But and even the running back group, like Ronald Jones is pretty good. I like Keyshawn Vaughan, but it's not a sure thing. You can't tell me that they're going to be one of the
All
best
right,
running back groups in the NFL.
the tight end stats between Brait and Howard were 770 yards and 5 touchdowns, and that is with two receivers that were over 1,000 yards.
Okay, they have 5 touchdowns. Like, you tell me that's the best tight end group in the NFL? I don't know. I just don't buy it.
You're
Okay,
adding Gronk to it.
you're adding Gronk. I'm not high on Gronk. I'm not that high on Gronk.
All
I
right,
love
for
Gronk.
next show, you're gonna list the top tight end groups for me, the top 5. See if you can find a group that find 4 better teams than the Bucs.
I'm not saying that they're not going to be up there just because I don't think tight end is. I don't think a lot of teams have that many good tight ends. I'm just saying, like, I don't think the tight end group is as valuable as people are making it seem. Like the Bucs tight end group specifically. That's just how I feel.
All right.
I mean, I have them going 10-6. I'm just saying, like, people need to slow down. This is kind of reminding me of the Browns from last year with all the hype, but
Wow.
I'm going 10-6. So their defense grade, I gave them a B+. I think the defense is might be sort of like the saving grace of the Bucs team, just in terms of I don't think the offense is going to be as great as a lot of people are making it seem, but I do think that the defense is going to be able to carry their weight. They have a lot of guys where you look on the depth chart and you say like, oh, I didn't know he's on the Bucs now. Like they have Jason Pierre-Paul, they have Ndamukong Suh. So they have a good pass rush. Guys like Vita Vea and Shaq Barrett are just going to add to that. I'm a little unsure of the secondary, though. It's kind of a young group. They added Antoine Winfield in the draft, who I know a lot of people liked. We talked about him in our draft podcast. I wasn't necessarily the highest on him, but I think he'll be a good addition. I think the pass rush, though, I think either the pass rush needs to be great or the corners need to step up in order for the defense to be considered, like, truly special. But I do think it's a solid defense. Coaching grade, I gave him a B. Bruce Arians, I think he's an average NFL head coach. That's what I would sort of lump him in as. He went 7-9 last year, and that was with a quarterback who threw 30 picks. So, I mean, he's not great, but I think he could certainly do a lot worse than him. The only thing that concerns me is his like playing style, and Brady's playing style. I don't know if they necessarily match all that much because I know Arians is a guy who likes to throw it down the field all the time, and I don't know if Brady can do that right now. But I'm sure they'll find a way to make it fit.
Yeah.
And my breakout player, I have Ronald Jones. I'm not saying he's going to break out into like a superstar at all, but I think that he's going to emerge as sort of like the James White of the Bucs, where I think he's going to catch a lot of passes out of the backfield because we all know Brady loves to throw to his running backs, and he's going to turn into a guy that's like an established like NFL player, like good for fantasy, like fans. The average fan is going to know him by the end of the year. And two big games. I have these just for the quarterback play. I have Week 12 versus the Chiefs and Week 6 versus the Packers. That, like I said, it's going to be Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes. That's going to be must see, and it's going to be Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers, which I feel like we haven't had in a long time. I don't really remember the last time Tom Brady played Aaron Rodgers, so that's going to be exciting to watch.
All right, sounds good. I have the Bucs at 11-5, overall 4-2 in the division, grabbing the 5 seed, so they will be in the playoffs as well. But kind of going off what you said, they're a team where when they finished 11-5, I was kind of hesitant. I think they're more going to be a 9-7 to a 10-6 team, just because I think they have so many new pieces and so much adjusting to do, and without the off season, I think that's going to hurt them, and that could lead to like a slow start out of the gate. And I mean, we've never seen Tom Brady outside of New England, so it's kind of what are we getting from him? He relied so much on hitting guys like Edelman, Amendola, Chris Hogan on those little slants and outs and letting them do the work. And the running backs, I mean, so we don't know what that's going to be this year, if Tom Brady's going to have to squeeze the ball in tight windows 25 yards down the field or whatnot. I mean, they have the weapons, but I gave them an A for their offense just because of all the talent. I think they're right up there with the Saints as probably the most talented overall offense. The only question I really have with that group is the offensive line. How good can it be? Can they keep Tom Brady upright and give him that short amount of time that he needs to get the ball? I mean, that's his biggest strength, his quick release and his ability to get the ball out of his hands to his playmakers with plenty of time. So they just need to give him those fractions of a second to let him read the defense and get the ball out. And how fast can the group, like I was saying, all come together, come up to speed with no off season pretty much. I think Evans, Godwin, and Gronk is the best trio in the NFL of pass catchers. I mean, that's a scary group with Godwin and Evans both going over 1,100 yards and both having 8+ touchdowns last year. You throw Gronk, who, like, I mean, you said he's been beat up for most of his career, but he took a whole year off. He's fresh, no injuries last year. So even if they are only going to give him 50 catches a season and 6 or 7 touchdowns, he's going to still draw eyes of the defense, and he's going to open up stuff for other guys. So, and I really like the young duo of Ronald Jones and Keyshawn Vaughan in the backfield. I think that's going to be a group that raised a lot of eyebrows throughout the league this year. And like I was saying, I think that's the best tight end group in the league. The numbers might not show it as much, but I think talent-wise, and they're going to be able to draw some attention. Why are you rolling your eyes?
You're telling me you would take that group over Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert?
I just think because of the overall, they have 3. If it was just 2 of them, no. But I think that's 3 guys who they could throw out there anytime and be fine. If Zach Ertz or Goddard goes down, who's behind them that's going to produce?
Okay, well, I'm not saying injuries. I'm just saying, like, how many good tight ends do you expect to have on the team? I don't think Cameron Brate.
Yeah, I'm saying they have 3.
Cameron Brate, what's he done? Come on.
Cameron Brate's a solid NFL player. All right, but if you're really saying that, look at Dallas Goedert's numbers. He's been in the league for 3 years now. He hasn't broke out at all.
I feel very confident in saying that Dallas Goedert is a better tight end than Cameron Brate.
Dallas Goedert had 58 catches last year, 670 yards, and 5 touchdowns. His rookie year, he had 33 catches, 334 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Not amazing numbers, and that's but he has Zach Ertz.
Exactly. But
still, like, if you have Gronk, Howard, and Brate, you're telling me you wouldn't take those 3 over those 2?
I would not. All
right, but for next show, we're both making our list of top 5 tight end groups in the league.
I think Ertz and Goddard have talent that is miles above O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate.
All right, we'll debate this. We'll debate this next show. We might even just do a podcast breaking down the top 5 tight end groups in the league.
Okay.
And Dallas Goedert just got sucker punched, so
it doesn't mean anything.
He's not going to be the same player as he was.
Yeah, you think he'll get back in time?
Defense grade, I give him a B-. They don't really have many big names in the secondary. I think that's going to be their downfall. That's the huge question mark with this defense. Levante David, he's a tackling machine. Devin White had a great rookie year. He's going to take an even bigger leap. In year 2, they could be the best linebacking duo in the NFL, I think. They could go head-to-head with Barr and Kendricks out in Minnesota, I think, as the two best pairings in the league. So, and they have a very solid pass rush. I mean, but these guys are getting older with Sue, JPP up front. But last year's breakout player, Shaq Barrett, we can see if he can replicate that success and play well again. And I think the defense needs to be just good enough to hold up for the high-powered offense. Don't let the other team score 35 to 40 points, because I think Brady is going to find a way to be able to put up 28 to 35 points with that group. Coaching grade, I gave him a B+. Arians is one of the better offensive coaches in the league, but he hasn't had much playoff success as a head coach. He had a decent first year with the Bucs. I mean, like you said, Winston threw 30 picks. He still won 7 games. So, I mean, if Brady could cut those in half, I mean, that's where I think we're looking at maybe a 10-6 to 11-5 team. He's got one of the most talented offenses in the league. So I'm interested to see what he can do with all those weapons. And like you were saying, kind of he's been a downfield throwing coach for most of his career, his systems. Let's see if he can kind of make it best of both worlds for the two of them. And breakout player, I got Keyshawn Vaughan. He was like a Heisman candidate last year in the preseason. He's in a very good spot, I think, here compared to Vanderbilt, where, I mean, kind of we don't really see much players do much other than Jordan Matthews out of Vanderbilt. So he's a very talented guy who I was high on in the draft. I think he's got a chance to him and Jones be, like I was saying, be a very solid duo. So we'll see if Arians can get the most from him, kind of how he did with David Johnson. We saw ever since Arians retired, David Johnson kind of went down. So he has elevated running backs play. We'll see if he can do the same with Vaughn going forward. That's all I got.
2 big games?
Oh, yeah, 2 big games. My bad. Week 3 at the Broncos. That might be kind of a weird one, but I think the Broncos are going to be a very good team this upcoming season. Fun fact about Tom Brady, actually, the only NFL team that he has a career losing record against is the Denver Broncos. So we've seen him struggle against them a lot, especially recent years when they had Peyton Manning out there and that great defense. They go to Denver, too. That's always a tough place to play. And Week 9 versus Saints, I feel like the Saints will win that Week 1 game at home like we were talking about. So if the Bucs want any shot at winning the division, they need to win that game versus Saints. They can't go 0-2 versus them. So those are my 2 games.
Yeah. Brian, just to ask you a quick question. What unit would you take, the Bucs offense or the Saints offense?
I'd take the Saints. I think they're just more like they've been together longer. Like this Bucs team is kind of getting thrown together.
Yeah.
And like we were saying, they're not going to have much time. And it's kind of like people always like think like it doesn't really matter that much, but like you always see like players and coaches say like no, it does. Like you have to get that stuff like down right, because every team they run their routes different. They have different systems. It's all like 1 or 2 steps, but that can make the difference between a pick 6 or a touchdown. Like it's 1 step in the NFL is such a big difference.
Yeah, I agree. I just wanted to see, just because of all the hype surrounding the Bucs offense. But my 3rd place team in the NFC South, I have the Atlanta Falcons. I have them going 5-11 with a 2-4 divisional record. So kind of a drop off here from the top 2 to the bottom 2. My offense grade, it's funny because I gave them a B+, and the Falcons are always a team where you just sort of like look at them and you expect them like to just be amazing offensively, like unstoppable. But they really haven't been that over the past 2 years, ever since they went to the Super Bowl. And I think that has to do a lot with all the names that you see on their roster. Like they have big names everywhere on offense. I don't know if you know this, but every player in their starting lineup on offense was a first round pick. So that's kind of a crazy thing. Like they've put together all those first round picks there, but I just think I just think the coaching is going to hold them back. Like they haven't been the same since they had Kyle Shanahan, really, and ever since he left, it just hasn't. The offense just hasn't been there. I mean, I love the players they have. I love Julio. I love Matt Ryan. I love Calvin Ridley, but I don't know. I just don't see it from a coaching standpoint. And their defense, great. I gave them a B. It just always seems like the Falcons are super beat up on defense. I mean, like it'll be like a week or two into the year, and they'll already have lost like one or two guys for the season. But they do have some decent players, like McKinley, Grady Jarrett. Like these are some guys that can get after the quarterback a little. They brought in another big name in Dante Fowler Jr., who is another first round pick. So we'll see how he can be. He was all right for the Rams, I guess. He hasn't really lived up to his potential, in my opinion. Not a lot of huge names in the secondary, sort of like the Bucs. So I don't know. We'll see how the defense can put it together if they can stay healthy this year. Moving on to their coaching grade, I'm not a big Dan Quinn guy. I gave him a C. And when you think about the Falcons, they're known for their offense, and they're known for like their high-powered offense in the past years. Like that's just what it seems like. And I don't think that Dan Quinn has a lot to do with that at all. I think that's like I said earlier, mainly Kyle Shanahan. I thought he would be fired last year, to be honest, but Arthur Blank kept him. He brought him back. So I think this will be the last year for Dan Quinn in Atlanta. I feel pretty confident saying that. My breakout player, I have tight end Hayden Hurst. I think this is a pretty obvious one. He was traded there from the Ravens, another first-round pick. He didn't get the chance to be the guy that the Ravens drafted him to be just because of Mark Andrews. But the Falcons lost Austin Hooper. Hayden Hurst will see plenty of targets there. He'll get a lot of looks, and he's just going to turn into one of those steady tight end groups, or steady tight end positions. He'll probably be better than O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate. So my two big games.
What about Gronk?
I don't even count Gronk. I know.
You're just acting like he's a piece of meatloaf.
He was a shell of himself at the end of his last year. You just expect him to take 1 year off, and all of a sudden he'll get back to being that guy. I don't know. I don't see it.
Yeah. I'm not saying he's going to be his same self, but it's still Gronk.
I know, and
most of what he does, you can't teach.
I respect Gronk. I'm just saying, I don't think he's what he used to be. And Week 1 versus Seahawks is my first big game, just because that's a big test right off the bat. Seattle is one of my playoff teams that I have. Russell Wilson is top 2 quarterback in the NFL. That'll be kind of a measuring stick game, like I say all the time, just to see where this Falcons team's at, see where Dan Quinn has them. And then I have Week 11 in New Orleans, coming off of the Falcons are coming off of a bye, so that'll be kind of a big game. One of those like dome games, NFC South, where both teams are kind of flying around. High-scoring game, I would imagine. Just kind of your prototypical. When I think NFC South, that's kind of what I think, and that'll be a big game to see if they can come off the bye and get the win.
So while you were talking, I looked up.
Okay.
I just Googled best tight end groups in the NFL and pressed on the first article. The Philadelphia Eagles, number 5, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, number 1.
Okay, who's 2, 3, and 4?
I don't necessarily agree with this list. They have the Browns at 2, Chiefs at 3, and the 49ers at 4. I think that's because they believe Kelsey is better than Ertz and Kittle's better than Ertz.
Okay, and then the Browns have Njoku, and they have
Hooper.
They have Hooper now. Yeah, that's definitely better than the Bucs, in my opinion.
They got one of the best tight ends in the draft this year, in like the 4th round. He was supposed to be like a 2nd or 3rd rounder.
Yeah. Okay. So now I have 3 teams better than the Bucs.
You're just gonna say that the Bucs aren't good. Like their tight end group. I don't know. Just that they have the deepest tight end group in the league. I feel like that can't be argued.
I didn't realize that Cameron Brate turned into Travis Kelce in this offseason. I must have missed that.
You're just hating on Cameron Brate for no reason.
What has he done?
What other backup tight ends are getting you like 350 yards and 4 or 5 touchdowns?
Goddard.
He's the 3rd string tight end though.
Njoku will.
Your 3rd string tight ends on most teams are getting you like 10 catches and like 100 yards if you're lucky.
The 3rd string tight end doesn't matter on a team.
But if one of them goes down, all right, I'm not arguing this anymore.
Are they gonna run 3 tight end sets?
They have the people to.
Okay, that'll be something to see.
Okay. For my 3rd place team, I also had the Falcons, but I had them going at 8-8. I just think they're across the board. I think they're an 8-8 team. I had them 8-8 in the league, or overall 3-3 in the division, 4-4 at home, 4-4 on the road. So just 500 across the board, pretty much. Offense, I gave them a big B+. Matt Ryan's still playing very well. I mean, the team hasn't had much success, so he's not kind of getting the same attention that he did during that MVP season, but he's still playing really well, not really showing much signs of slowing down. They added Gurley, who is a few years removed from being the best running back in the league. We'll see if a change of scenery maybe will help him out, but the running back spot is a big question mark behind him. I mean, it's a bunch of no-name guys. Ito Smith is the only guy who kind of you can hang your hat on that's been like a somewhat productive NFL player in that backfield behind Gurley. So if Gurley goes down, we've seen him have injury problems over the past few years. That could be a problem. Julio and Ridley form one of the best duos in the league, but they lost Austin Hooper, who's been a Pro Bowler the last 2 years, so that's a big loss. And they have a solid offensive line across. I mean, B+ to a B, that's kind of where they are, I think, as an offense. Defense, B-. You said you don't really like the secondary, but I actually kind of do. I think they have a lot of young talent back there. They drafted A.J. Terrell in the 1st round. Isaiah Oliver's a young corner who's played pretty well. Keanu Neal and Ricardo Allen are a very solid safety duo. So I think that's actually, it's definitely not a group that's churning out Pro Bowlers every year, but I think that is a pretty solid unit back there. I like the addition of Fowler to boost their pass rush, but they lost Vic Beasley, so that's kind of a wash, I think. I don't really feel like they got better. They got better there, but after they lost Beasley, they kind of made up for it by getting Fowler. They needed that former 1st rounder, though, Takk McKinley, to step up. He hasn't really lived up to his potential. I mean, he's shown flashes, but he's a 1st-round pick. He's kind of he's a little bit worse so far, I think, but you can kind of compare him to Derek Barnett of the Eagles, where he hasn't lived up to that 1st-round billing that he got. And I think Deion Jones is an elite linebacker, but he's going to have to play most of, if not all, the snaps this year to make up for the lack of talent there. They're just lacking difference makers on that defense. They don't really have many guys you can hang your hat on and say, this guy is like a Pro Bowl or All-Pro type player. Coaching grade, I gave Quinn a B-. He just hasn't been the same since that Super Bowl collapse. And like you were saying, he's a defensive coach, and that unit has struggled over the past few years. And with a defensive coach, you expect the defense to be the unit that leads the team, and they've always been an offensive team under him. So I think this is going to be his final year here as well, and he's going to be able to get a new start and be a coordinator somewhere else, and maybe find a way to get back to coaching great defense again like he did in Seattle, and maybe he'll get another head coaching job down the line. Breakout player, I got Hayden Hurst as well, traded from the Ravens. I think it's just a better fit for him here. Matt Ryan has loved throwing the tight ends. He had Tony Gonzalez before, and then he made Austin Hooper into a Pro Bowl type player as well. So I think he's going to be the clear-cut guy at the tight end spot, where in Baltimore, Hurst was competing with Mark Andrews, and they had another guy, Max Williams, there. So he never really was the clear-cut guy. And Lamar Jackson and Mark Ingram, I mean, that's just been a run-heavy offense for the past 2 years, so not many opportunities for him. So he's going to have plenty of opportunities here. In 2 big games, I have Week 4 at the Packers. It's a Monday Night Football game. I think that was I think they play on Thursday night at some point in the season, but that was like their only other primetime game. So just game at Lambeau Field. Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, 2 big-time quarterbacks. Should be a fun game. And Week 17 at the Bucs. I feel like that could be the last game of the Dan Quinn era, or that could be, with all that talent on offense, if they can outscore their opponents in like high-scoring affairs, that could be a game where maybe they're playing for that 7th seed in the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see what the Falcons do with all this new talent on offense. But I got them at 8-8 and missing the playoffs with Dan Quinn getting fired.
I will say, I have them going 5-11, but if there was one team in my projections where I could see them surprising me and making the playoffs by somehow, the Falcons could be that team just because of all the talent that they have on offense.
I think they're kind of comparable to, I mean, you're saying you're picking the Falcons for your kind of team that could surprise you despite your projections. I had that with the Lions last week. I mean, they have a lot of talent on their offense as well. It's kind of, but it's weird, the deep marks on both of those teams, and they both have defensive-minded coaches. It'll definitely be interesting to see what those 2 teams do this year.
Yeah. So just to finish up, the Panthers going 4-12. In 1 game worse than last year. I think they went 5-11 last year. But first year coach. I think it might be I think they'll have to go backwards before they go forwards there. And I gave them a B- on offense grade. I was gonna give them a C+, but then I thought they have Christian McCaffrey. I can't give a team with Christian McCaffrey a C grade, so I gave him a B-. But I'm not really sold on Bridgewater. I don't hate him, but I'm just not sold on him because I don't really know about the fit between him and the personnel they have there right now at the wide receiver group. They have sort of like fast, deep threat kind of guys, and Anderson and Curtis Samuel. And I don't know about Bridgewater's arm. I don't know how he'll be able to get it to them. I think if they want to succeed, they're going to have to adopt some sort of like short passing game and like screens or like quick slants. I think that'll benefit them the most. They have DJ Moore. A lot of people are really high on him. A lot of people are calling for a breakout season from him. I like him. I just think he's kind of just an average wide receiver at this point. We'll see if he can make me eat my words there. But Ian Thomas is their tight end. I don't even know who that guy is.
Yeah.
So the Panthers is definitely a group that I would say I think they're behind the Bucs in terms of their tight end group.
Wait, I need to criticize you on one thing real quick. You said DJ Moore is only an average receiver. Last year he had 87 catches, 1,175 yards, 4 touchdowns.
I shouldn't have said average. I think he's an above average receiver. But
those are Pro Bowl caliber numbers.
I just don't really see him developing into a star. I don't think they have the star. I don't think he has the star power there. I don't think Bridgewater can really make him into a star either. But I'll take that back. I think he's an above average to very good NFL wide receiver. My defense grade, I gave them a C. And if you're type of person that likes to read the depth chart and evaluate how good you think they are based on how many names you know, the Panthers defense is not going to be a good evaluation for you. They're very young on defense. They drafted a lot of guys who I like though. They Derek Brown, I really liked him. Gross Matos, Jeremy Chin, all kind of guys that I targeted going into the draft and said like I like these players. So they're clearly in a rebuilding phase on defense. One name that kind of sticks out to you, Eli Apple, is on the Panthers now. I didn't know that. I missed that. But I have a fun fact for the Panthers defense. Linebacker Shaq Thompson once played for the Red Sox rookie league team. He played 13 games. He had 39 at bats. Ryan, can you guess how many hits he had in 39 at bats?
I'll go 2.
He went 0 for 39 with 37 strikeouts.
How'd you come across that?
Because I saw Shaq Thompson's name and I was like, the name sounds familiar. Let me look him up and see if I'm familiar with like what he's done in the NFL. And then like in his little bio, it says that he played for the rookie league team. And there's an article that I found. The headline is Shaq Thompson finishes what is almost certainly worst minor league debut campaign ever. Yeah, so I don't know.
He is a good linebacker though. 109 tackles last year.
Yeah, 0 for 39 though, with 37 strikeouts. So I don't know. That's just sort of a funny thing to end the podcast with on the last team here. But my coaching grade, I gave Matt Rule a B-. I don't think I could go any higher or any less than that, just because I don't know what he is yet. He's had a lot of success in college. Turned around Temple and Baylor. It's a little bit of a shame because I wanted my Texas Longhorns to make a run on him. Get rid of Herman. I'm sick of him, but he went to the NFL. But time will tell for him. So right now, I just gave him a score of a B-. I do think he could develop into a decent NFL head coach. Breakout player, I have Curtis Samuel. He's a guy that a lot of people have picked to break out last year. He didn't really do that. He's a very fast guy, sort of like people have always been saying that he's going to take the next step, it seems like, even though he hasn't been in the league that long. But I think that Matt Rule will find a way to sort of work with him as like a Deebo Samuel type. That's what I kind of see him as, like the most successful. Because if he can catch screens and like quick slants, stuff like that, he has the speed to do a lot after the catch. And I actually just heard a quote from the Panthers offensive coordinator right before I came on here. He said that Curtis Samuel is going to be like a very, very valuable piece of their offense this year. So we'll see how he does. 2 big games for the Panthers. I have Week 8 versus the Falcons on Thursday Night Football. That's kind of just for these bad teams. I always sort of put them against a team that I also have sort of the bottom tier in the NFL, just to see who can win these games, because that sort of will make the difference between a terrible team and like a not terrible team. And I have Week 16 against the Redskins for the same reasons there.
All right. I also had the Panthers finishing 5-11. Or I mean, you had them 4-12. I am at 5-11, finishing last place with the 1-5 divisional record. So I mean, obviously not good enough to make the playoffs. But they're a group that I think they're not going to win a lot of games this year, but they're going to be a tough team to beat. Offense, I gave them a B. I really like Bridgewater. I think he's very solid, accurate quarterback. He's going to be able to get the ball to his playmakers. I mean, Robbie Anderson's a very good deep threat. Curtis Samuel, I think, could have a decent season. And I really like DJ Moore. He was on one of my fantasy teams last year, and he produced a lot. I mean, I said his numbers earlier, 87 catches, over 1,000 yards. He needs some more touchdowns. One of his big problems, though, is he's had a fumbling issue since he got into the league. So that's something he can clean up. But he kind of reminds me of like a Stephon Diggs, where he's a pretty good route runner. He's got deep down the field speed and can make a lot of plays with the ball in his hand. So I think he's in for a big year. And of course, you got Christian McCaffrey. I think this unit has definitely potential to put up some points, but they definitely need the protection to improve up front. That's going to be their big question mark. They traded out Trey Turner, who's one of the better guards in the league, for Russell Okung, who's a tackle. So that was also kind of a wash, but tackle's more important position than guard in the NFL. And the question mark's a big tight end. There's a big question at tight end after Greg Olsen left this offseason. You don't really know what you're going to be getting out of that unit. So, and who is there behind McCaffrey? I mean, if he goes down, the season's a lost cause. There's a bunch of no-name guys back there. So if he goes down, it's going to get bad in a hurry, I think. Defense grade, I gave them a C. That's just a very young, inexperienced group. I mean, they lost Luke Kuechly. They lost Gerald McCoy. So, and Luke Kuechly, the greatest defensive player, either him or Julius Peppers in the history of that franchise. And Gerald McCoy's had been an All-Pro in the past. He's still, I think, a Pro Bowl caliber type player. So those are two big hits. They added Derek Brown and Gross Matos through the draft. They drafted all defense. So this is definitely going to be a young, inexperienced group, like I said, with a lot of growing pains. But I think it's going to help them down the line as Matt Rule tries to build that program like he has throughout college. Coach grade, I give him a B. I don't think you could give Matt Rule higher than that just because he has no head coaching experience in the NFL. But he's been a great college coach. We haven't really seen that many people translate going from college to the NFL, having success right away. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do. He is a program builder, though. He's a big culture guy, and they're also big on analytics and speed and stuff. So he's kind of the coach who's following the modern blueprint now. He's up and coming, and I'm excited to see how the Panthers can hopefully turn around their franchise in the coming years. Breakout player, I gave it to Gross Matos. I don't know how great he's going to do, but I think he's going to raise some eyebrows for sure. I think he's going to play with a chip on his shoulder after falling to the second round in the draft after being considered a first-round caliber pick in between 15 to 30, 32 in that back half of the first round. He's a big, fast, explosive player. Rule loves those type of guys, and he's going to fit his system, I think, and he could be the leading sacker as a rookie this upcoming year. I don't know how much that'll be, but I think between 8 and 10 could get the job done. And he's going to get a lot of playing time right away. So I feel like either him or Derek Brown are two pretty good picks for your breakout defensive player on that team. And two big games ahead. Week 1 versus the Raiders. I mean, the first game of the Matt Rule era in Carolina. It'll be the first home game. So, and against the Raiders, a lot of people are expecting them to be a pretty solid team this year as well. So kind of see where they're at. And then Week 8 versus the Falcons on Thursday Night Football. That's their only primetime game of the year, a divisional game. And once again, the first primetime home game with their new coach. So it'll be interesting to see. And that's kind of the midway point of the year. So we'll see the progress that they've made since the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I got nothing to add.
All right. Sounds good. So do you want to do a separate 10, 15-minute podcast doing the top 5 tight end groups, or do you just want to throw that in at the beginning of next show?
I mean, we could throw it in at the beginning. I don't think it would take that long.
Okay.
We could also put a poll up on Twitter, putting some of the better tight end groups in the NFL and see what the fans think is the best.
All right, sounds good. What we could do though is right before we do the NFC West, we'll do a separate 10-minute recording
that's
of
fine.
the tight ends, and then we'll go right into the NFC West.
Okay.
But all right, everyone, thanks for listening, following along. Like we said, the NFC West will be next before we move on to the AFC. Thanks for following along, guys. I appreciate it. Anything to add, Kevin, before we head out?
No, a lot of good quarterback play in the NFC South.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be a division that puts up points, and we could see, I think, we both had 2 teams from that division head to the playoffs, so It'll be interesting to see as we go forward. All right, thanks, Kevin. I'll see you.
Okay, bye.